with me today, Karen Finney, MSNBC host and former DNC Communications Director, Patrick Millsaps, partner at the Hall Booth Smith Law Firm and former Chief of Staff to the Newt Gingrich 2012 campaign, Richard Kim, Executive Editor of TheNation.com, and Ira Katznelson, Professor of Political Science and History at Columbia University, and author of Fear Itself, The New Deal and the Origins of Our Time. Thank you all for being here. Karen, I want to start with you because I feel like sort of what is going on here? I mean, the guns piece most specifically, here's something where you've got 90% of Americans saying they support it. You're seeing people like Senator Kelly Ayotte taking, real heat for it. Senator McCain getting applause for his yes vote. What in the world is happening?
So remember that you had some House members saying, it's going to die when it comes over here. So you had senators saying, well, I'm not going to stick my neck out on something that's going to end up dying. And what was the reason a lot of them said on the House side? I don't want to give Obama a victory. I don't want to give him something he wants. I think a big part of the problem in terms of the obstruction is that that's why the president kept saying, it's not about me, right? They keep trying to make it about him. And you do have a sizable number of members of Congress for whom that is enough motivation. And there's also a sizable number of members of Congress for whom blowing it all up is perfectly acceptable. I mean, we heard that going into the sequester, right? That like if it all shuts down, great, we want that. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think there's another more hardball game to be played here. I would have liked to see victims of gun violence from the states mm-hmm. of those members who were threatening to filibuster, because God bless the folks from Newtown, but until there's political pain and a cost to be paid to those members of Congress who are going to take the vote.
Well, we did see Gabby Giffords grab the arm of her senator and friend and say, come on, we're going to need your vote here. Patrick, I saw you starting to roil up a little bit about the idea that, that Republicans are just willing to kind of blow the whole thing up. But I want to play this RNC ad that came right after the kind of sad president press conference. So let's take a look at that.
The gun bill failed, the sequester appears here to stay, and immigration reform is still a glimmer of hope, largely because the president has stayed out of it.
Maybe I should just back up and go home.
So it says, hey, the only thing that we're going to allow to happen is the one thing the president isn't really part of. Why aren't you leading? I mean, I got to say, it's an incredibly effective ad, but it also does feel like what they're saying is we are still running against this president.
Well, two things. Yeah. Forget your politics. If you're the president of the United States and somebody asks you if you have enough juice, whatever the answer really is, you say yes, absolutely. That is leadership 101.
All right, so that's swagger 101. You just always say yes.
Yes, it is. I've got juice. Yes, I mean, I worked for Newt. He had always had juice.
Well, yes, even when that was an absolute fiction. I'm sure.
Well,
got it.
But here's the thing on the gun. Blaming Congress has become a very convenient thing for the president. But if y'all remember, right after Newtown, the rhetoric and the vitriol about guns was not just directed at criminals. It became a vilification of gun ownership. And so, while at the end of the day, when we finally get to background checks, which by the way Georgia has, I have a carry permit, I even have a license with my thumbprint. But when you start with all guns are bad, and I'm not saying that the president necessarily was that, but
but there's nothing. I got to tell you, Patrick, there's nothing in the legislation that is at all as a matter of policy.
We got down to a very watered down piece of legislation that should have been really simple.
It was watered down by Harry Reid.
Well, I think, in fact, part of the reason that gun control failed this time is because there wasn't actually that left flank on it, right? We gave away assault weapons ban before there even was a vote on it, and no one was talking about buybacks for guns, which they enacted in Australia very successfully. No one was talking about this is going to be radical, amending the Second Amendment. That there is a role for a radical left flank on something that actually creates a different kind of center than the center that was created between President Obama on the one hand and the congressional Republicans on the other.
I'm so glad you said that, Ira, because I've been spending my life at this point working my way through your new book, Fear Itself. And part of the claim that you make about New Deal politics is, in fact, that there was all of this contestation within the Congress itself.
We have to remember that the politics of Congress is a real, rich, robust conflictual politics. And presidents should not walk away from that. Neither should members of Congress. The outcome that we get in legislation is the result of people pushing and tugging and shoving and sometimes even insulting each other. Now, the president's rhetoric, however, I think was potentially well chosen if he's playing for the long run, and the long run being a Harry Truman-style campaign against the do-nothing Congress. Because in this case, he may well have calculated that to say, I have juice and I'm fighting and fighting, would make him seem weaker in a few weeks when he doesn't get anything else. In turn, he's saying, you've got responsibility. You don't play the game. I'm coming back at you in 2014.
Hold right here, because I am interested in this question of like whether or not you perform the swagger or whether or not you ask for your partner in the game to also be dealing with their responsibilities. And this is a big deal because the president's domestic agenda isn't the only thing that's given him the blues. After the break, Syria, Guantanamo Bay. This guy's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, folks.